Chapter 6 of The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 6 The Undersized Shadow. For half an hour after Joel Cairo had gone, Spade sat alone, still and frowning, in his office. Then he said aloud, in the tone of one dismissing a problem, "Well, they're paying for it," and took a bottle of Manhattan cocktail and a paper drinking cup from a desk drawer. He filled the cup 2/3 full, drank, put the bottle back in the drawer, tossed the cup into the wastebasket, put on his hat and overcoat, switched off the lights, and went down to the night-lit street. An undersized youth of 20 or 21, in a neat gray cap and overcoat, was standing idly on the corner below Spade's building. Spade walked up Sutter Street to Kearny, where he went into a cigar store to buy 2 sacks of Bull Durham. When he came out, the youth was one of the 4 people waiting for a streetcar on the opposite corner. Spade went to Herbert's Grill in Powell Street for dinner. When he left the grill at 7:45, the youth was looking into a nearby haberdasher's window. Spade went to the Hotel Belvedere, asking at the desk for Mr. Cairo. He was told that Mr. Cairo was not in. The youth sat in a chair in a far corner of the hotel lobby. Spade went to the Geary Theater, failed to see Cairo in the lobby, and posted himself on the curb in front, facing the theater. The youth loitered with other loiterers before Marquard's restaurant below. At 8:10, Joel Cairo appeared, walking up Geary Street with his little mincing, bobbing steps. Apparently, he did not see Spade until the private detective touched his shoulder. He seemed moderately surprised for a moment, and then said, "Oh, yes, of course. You saw the ticket." "Uh-huh. I've got something I want to show you." Spade drew Cairo back toward the curb, a little away from the other waiting theater-goers. "The kid in the cap down by Marquard's." Cairo murmured, "I'll see," and looked at his watch. He looked up Geary Street. He looked at a theater sign in front of him on which George Arliss was shown costumed as Shylock, and then his dark eyes crawled sideways in their sockets until they were looking at the kid in the cap, at his cool pale face with curling lashes hiding lowered eyes. "Who is he?" Spade asked. Cairo smiled up at Spade. "I do not know him." "He's been tailing me around town." Cairo wet his lower lip with his tongue and asked, "Do you think it was wise, then, to let him see us together?" "How do I know?" Spade replied. "Anyway, it's done." Cairo took off his hat and smoothed his hair with a gloved hand. Then he replaced his hat carefully and said with every appearance of candor, "I give you my word I do not know him, Mr. Spade. I give you my word I have nothing to do with him. I have asked nobody's assistance except yours, on my word of honor." "Then he's one of the others?" "That may be." "I just wanted to know, because if he gets to be a nuisance, I may have to hurt him." "Do as you think best. He is not a friend of mine." "That's good. There goes the curtain. Good night," Spade said, and crossed the street to board a westbound streetcar. The youth in the cap boarded the same car. Spade left the car at Hyde Street and went up to his apartment. His rooms were not greatly upset, but showed unmistakably that they had been searched. When Spade had washed and put on a fresh shirt and collar, he went out again, walked up to Sutter Street, and boarded a westbound car. The youth boarded it also. Within half a dozen blocks of the Coronet, Spade left the car and went into the vestibule of a tall brown apartment building. He pressed 3 fourth-floor buttons together. The street door lock buzzed. He entered, passed the elevator and stairs, went down a long, yellow-walled corridor to the rear of the building, found a back door fastened with a Yale lock, and leaving the lock unlatched, let himself out into a narrow court. The court led to a dark back street, up which Spade walked for 2 blocks. Then he crossed over to California Street and went to the Coronet. It was not quite 9:30. The eagerness with which Bridget O'Shaughnessy welcomed Spade suggested that she had not been entirely certain of his coming. She had put on a satin gown of the blue shade called Artois that season, with chalcedony shoulder straps, and her stockings and slippers were Artois. The red-and-cream sitting-room had been brought to order and livened with flowers in squat pottery vases of black and silver. 3 small rough-barked logs burned in the fireplace. Spade watched them burn while she put away his hat and coat. "Do you bring me good news?" she asked when she came into the room again. Anxiety looked through her smile, and she held her breath. "We won't have to make anything public that hasn't already been made public." "The police won't have to know about me?" "No." She sighed happily and sat on the walnut settee. Her face relaxed and her body relaxed. She smiled up at him with admiring eyes. "However did you manage it?" she asked, more in wonder than in curiosity. "Most things in San Francisco can be bought or taken." "And you won't get into trouble? Do sit down." She made room for him on the settee. "I don't mind a reasonable amount of trouble," he said, with not too much complacence. He stood beside the fireplace and looked at her with eyes that studied, weighed, judged her without pretense that they were not studying, weighing, judging her. She flushed slightly under the frankness of his scrutiny, but she seemed more sure of herself than before, though a becoming shyness had not left her eyes. He stood there until it seemed plain that he meant to ignore her invitation to sit beside her, and then crossed to the settee. "You aren't," he asked as he sat down, "exactly the sort of person you pretend to be, are you?" "I'm not sure that I know what you mean," she said in her hushed voice, looking at him with puzzled eyes. "Schoolgirl manner," he explained, stammering, blushing, and all that. She blushed and replied hurriedly, not looking at him now, "I told you this afternoon that I'd been bad, worse than you could know." "That's what I mean," he said. "You told me that this afternoon in the same words, same tone. It's a speech you've practiced." After a moment in which she seemed confused almost to the point of tears, she laughed and said, "Very well, Mr. Spade. I'm not at all the sort of person I pretend to be. I'm 80 years old, incredibly wicked, and an iron moulder by trade. But if it's a pose, it's one I've grown into, so you won't expect me to drop it entirely, will you?" "Oh, it's all right," he assured her. "Only it wouldn't be all right if you were actually that innocent. We'd never get anywhere." "I won't be innocent," she promised with a hand on her heart. "I saw Joel Cairo tonight," he said in the manner of one making polite conversation. Gaiety went out of her face. Her eyes, focused on his profile, became frightened, then cautious. He had stretched out his legs and was looking at his crossed feet. His face did not indicate that he was thinking about anything. There was a long pause before she asked uneasily, You know him?" "I saw him tonight." Spade maintained his light conversational manner and did not look up from his feet. "He was going into the Geary to see George Arliss." "You mean you saw him to talk to?" "Only for a few minutes, till the performance started." She got up from the settee and went to the fireplace to poke at the fire. Then she changed slightly the position of an ornament on the mantelpiece, crossed the room to get a box of cigarettes from a table in a corner, straightened a curtain, and returned to her seat. Her face was now smooth and unworried. Spade grinned sidewise at her and said, "You're good. You're very good." Her face didn't change. She asked quietly, "What did he say?" "About what?" She hesitated. "About me." "Nothing." Spade turned to hold his lighter under the end of her cigarette. His eyes were shiny in a wooden Satan's face. "Well, what did he say?" she asked with half-playful petulance. "He offered me $5,000 for the Black Bird." She jumped, her teeth tore the end of a cigarette, and her eyes, after a swift, alarmed glance at Spade, turned away from him. "You're not going to poke at the fire and go around straightening the room again, are you?" he asked lazily. She laughed a clear, girlish laugh, dropped the mangled cigarette into a tray, and looked at him with clear, merry eyes. "I won't," she promised. "And what did you say?" "5,000 is a lot of money." She smiled as if she thought he was jesting, but when, instead of smiling, he looked gravely at her, her smile became confused, faint, and presently vanished. In its place came a hurt, bewildered look. "Surely you're not really considering it," she said. "Why not? 5,000 is a lot of money." "But, Mr. Spade, you promised to help me." Her hands were on his arm. "I trusted you. You can't—" She broke off, took her hands from his sleeve, and worked them together. Spade smiled gently into her troubled eyes. "Don't let's try to figure out how much you've trusted me," he said. "I promised to help you, but you didn't tell me anything about a black bird." "But you must have known, or you wouldn't have told me about it. You do know now. You can't treat me that way." Her eyes were cobalt-blue prayers. 5,000, he said for the third time, is a lot of money. She lifted her shoulders and hands and let them fall in a gesture that accepted defeat. "It is," she agreed in a small, dull voice. "It is far more than I could ever offer you, if I must bid for your loyalty." Spade laughed. His laughter was brief and somewhat bitter. "That is good," he said, "coming from you. What have you given me besides money? Have you given me any of your confidence, any of the truth, any help in helping you? Haven't you tried to buy my loyalty with money and nothing else? Well, if I'm peddling it, why shouldn't I let it go to the highest bidder?" "I've given you all the money I have." Tears glistened in her white ringed eyes. Her voice was hoarse, vibrant. "I've thrown myself on your mercy, told you that without your help I'm utterly lost. What else is there?" She suddenly moved close to him on the settee and cried angrily, "Can I buy you with my body?" Their faces were a few inches apart. Spade took her face between his hands and he kissed her mouth roughly and contemptuously. Then he sat back and said, "I'll think it over." His face was hard and furious. She sat still, holding her numb face where his hands had left it. He stood up and said, "There's no sense to this." He took 2 steps toward the fireplace and stopped, glowering at the burning logs, grinding his teeth together. She did not move. He turned to face her. The 2 vertical lines over her nose were deep clefts between red welts. "I don't give a damn about your honesty," he told her, trying to make himself speak calmly. "I don't care what kind of tricks you're up to or what your secrets are. But I've got to have something to show that you know what you're doing." "I do know. Please believe that I do, and that it's all for the best, and—" "Show me," he ordered. "I'm willing to help you. I've done what I could so far. If necessary, I'll go ahead blindfolded, but I can't do it without confidence in you. You've got to convince me that you know what it's all about, that you're not simply fiddling around by guess, and by God, hoping it'll come out all right somehow in the end." "Can't you trust me just a little longer?" "How much is a little? And what are you waiting for?" She bit her lip and looked down. "I must talk to Joel Cairo," she said almost inaudibly. "You can see him tonight," Spade said, looking at his watch. "His show will be out in a little while. We can get him on the phone at his hotel." She raised her eyes, alarmed. "But he can't come here. I can't let him know where I am. I'm afraid." "My place," Spade suggested. She hesitated, working her lips together, then asked, "Do you think he'd come there?" Spade nodded. "All right," she exclaimed, jumping up, her eyes large and bright. "Shall we go now?" She went into the next room. Spade went to the table in the corner and silently pulled the drawer out. The drawer held 2 packs of playing cards, a pad of bridge scorecards, a brass screw, a piece of red string, and a gold pencil. He had closed the drawer and was lighting a cigarette when she returned wearing a small dark hat and gray kidskin coat, carrying his hat and coat. Their taxicab drew up behind a dark sedan that stood directly in front of Spade's street door. Iva Archer was alone in the sedan, sitting at the wheel. Spade lifted his hat to her and went indoors with Bridget O'Shaughnessy. In the lobby, he halted beside one of the benches and asked, "Do you mind waiting here a moment? I won't be long." "That's perfectly all right," Bridget O'Shaughnessy said, sitting down. "You needn't hurry." Spade went out to the sedan. When he had opened the sedan door, Iva spoke rapidly. "I've got to talk to you, Sam. Can't I come in?" Her face was pale and nervous. "Not now." Iva clicked her teeth together and asked sharply, "Who is she?" "I've only a minute, Iva," Spade said patiently. "What is it?" "Who is she?" she repeated, nodding at the apartment building door. He looked away from her down the street. In front of a garage on the next corner, an undersized youth of 20 or 21, in neat gray cap and overcoat, loafed with his back against a wall. Spade frowned and returned his gaze to Iva's insistent face. "What is the matter?" he asked. "Has anything happened? You oughtn't be here at this time of night." "I'm beginning to believe that," she complained. "You told me I oughtn't to come to the office, and now I oughtn't come here. Do you mean I oughtn't chase after you? If that's what you mean, why don't you say it right out?" "Now, Iva, you've got no right to take that attitude." "I know I haven't. I haven't any rights at all, it seems, where you're concerned. I thought I did. I thought your pretending to love me gave me some right, but—" Spade said wearily, "This is no time to be arguing about that, Precious. What was it you wanted to see me about?" "I can't talk to you here, Sam. Can't I come in?" "Not now." "Why can't I?" Spade said nothing. She made a thin line of her mouth, squirmed around straight behind the wheel, and started the engine, staring angrily ahead. When the sedan began to move, Spade said, "Good night, Iva," closed the door, and stood at the curb with his hat in his hand until it had been driven away. Then he went indoors again. Bridget O'Shaughnessy rose smiling cheerfully from the bench, and they went up to his apartment. End of chapter 6.